and they're doing an unboxing video. And I will write to them or I'll PM them, hey, you know what, it's illegal, you know, what you did and this. And a lot of times the person will be like, I really didn't know that.
Okay, today's video is going to be a little bit different than usual. So first we're going to do a little update on how the Hyllus babies are progressing. I still have all 5 that I separated, which I feel like is a huge accomplishment. Let me try to bring you guys in a little closer. I probably can't get like the best shots ever because honestly, taking them out is so sketchy. They're very fast little animals. It might look like they're a little skinny, but they all had a couple fruit flies last night. They're probably starting to get ready though for like pinhead crickets. This one might be in pre-molt. So yeah, as for caring for them, what I've been doing, my big secret, is that essentially I've been misting them pretty frequently. I just give it a little gentle spray over here. I like to get the lower corner just a little wet. See this? This will actually just sink into the substrate, give it a minute, and then little drops here on the side. So other than misting them just like that every other day or so, I also am feeding them about every other day, and I give them usually about 2 large fruit flies, sometimes 3, and they all disappear. So I mean, they're eating and they're really active. I do have them in these, you know, and you might almost think it's a little big for them, but they wander so much. You might be concerned if they're able to catch their prey in something this large, but they've had no issues. They're all eating, so I'm pretty happy with how things are going. Hyllus giganteus are from Indonesia, and they're from a very warm, humid climate, which I guess I should have also mentioned. I am keeping the babies under a heat lamp. Not like directly, but I am keeping them on the warm side, which I feel like is really contributing to their growth and the success that I've been seeing in the 5 that I did separate. I bred these myself, and I'm lucky enough to have this species because Tom Patterson and also his bestie Frank Somma is like one of the biggest OGs in the hobby. He's been importing for a really long time, and we'll get to know him a little bit more here in a minute. But to get this species in the country is a process that you have to go through, which we're going to expand on here more. I wanted to talk a little bit about something that I noticed that's kind of been bothering me, an issue in the invert hobby for the longest time, for as long as I remember, for as long as Frank probably even remembers. There's been a problem with something called brown boxing. Brown boxing is a way to kind of go around the import process. It's almost like the back door into this country. Basically, somebody will find a spider dealer or vendor or smuggler or poacher overseas, and these people will be selling the spiders for extraordinarily low prices, which is a huge red flag typically in this country. If you're seeing spiders for extremely low prices and it seems too good to be true, please listen to your gut because it probably is too good to be true. Anyway, these people will advertise them or find each other, and they will take your money. And sometimes, a lot of times, they will ship you the spiders that you're looking for, that you want, for a very low price. They'll ship it right to your house, and you know, they'll even portray it as, oh, it's not gonna get you in trouble, nobody's gonna get in trouble, it's fine. Well, it's not fine, and it's not legal. And if anybody's getting in trouble for it, it's gonna be the person ordering the spiders, the person receiving the spiders in the United States. Here's the thing. When we have people brown boxing, say like a Grammostola pulchra, okay? So say there's a vendor selling a Grammostola pulchra sling for like 90 bucks. And then there's another vendor selling a Grammostola pulchra sling for like 50 bucks, and they're the same size. Now, unless this person like bred them, I would see it as a red flag. Now going back to the Grammostola pulchra. So we have a lot of Grammostola pulchra here, so it doesn't really raise any red flags when a vendor is like, hey, I have 100 Grammostola pulchras, okay? This is where things kind of make me raise my eyebrow, and like something that's been bothering me is when we have a species like Hyllus giganteus and this like vendor that nobody's ever like even really heard of or worked with, that kind of just like comes out of nowhere and say they have Hyllus giganteus for sale, and they haven't even bred them, or maybe they say they did breed them. I mean, you know, it's important to verify these things, but just stick with me for a minute. So suddenly this person has these Hyllus giganteus for sale, or they're just keeping them or something like that, and you have to wonder, where did the Hyllus giganteus come into the country? Because all the importers pretty much know each other. They know what's going on. It's not a big group of people, okay? This is a pretty niche community in the United States and even the world. You have to question, where did these Hyllus giganteus come from? How did they get here? Because it wasn't Frank this time, and it wasn't Tom this time, and it wasn't any of these other people who are normally importing. Where did they come from? Obviously, the answer is pretty clear on what you could assume. And I see this with velvet spiders too. There's velvet spider species that, you know, I've wanted to get, but I know they're not legally entering the country because the people that do bring the velvet spiders in legally are like, oh no, I can't get those. You know, they're not working with me. They won't do it the right way. So I can't get the species into the country. I'm sorry, you know, but then you have other people keeping and selling them, and it's just really weird. It's just, it raises a red flag. Like I said, it's just easier to kind of pick up on it when it's a species that isn't very commonly in the hobby, whereas when it's like a Grammostola pulchra or Toledo cottle or Brachypilma, which that's a whole nother thing too, because like Brachypilma, Toledo cottle, those are CITES. That's a whole thing that adds a whole extra part to import them into the country. And some people just don't want to pay the money or go through that process either. So if it's CITES, that's extra paperwork. And then there's the whole Lacey Act. So that's a whole nother ballgame. I know people have asked about getting the T. Caledonia in the country. They cannot be legally imported anymore, but they were at one time. They were legally on Fish and Wildlife approved shipments, legally cleared to come into the country through these same importers. They used to be able to import them. Now they can't because of the Lacey Act. But our T. Caledonia is still coming into the country. Not everybody follows the rules in this hobby, and that's what sucks. So having said all this, I wanted to bring somebody here on the video that knows what they're talking about, that's been doing imports for a very long time and who knows way more than I do. Let's bring Frank on and get a little bit more info.
So where do you want to start this?
All right, so first let's introduce you. I'm sure some people already know who you are, but just for the sake of those who don't.
My name is Frank Somma. I've been importing since 1994.
So how long have you been keeping spiders?
It's a good question. I have to add this up. Since I was 13, so we're looking at like 42 years.
So when you first started keeping, was it even like really a thing? Like what species were even available? Just rose hairs?
My first species was Brachypelma smithi, which I believe is Brachypelma hammeri right now. $20 retail in a pet store for an adult. We had Haitians, which were about $6 for a Haitian, for Myctopus cancerites. Avicularia was around, even though they were considered kind of rare.
Was anybody breeding them?
There were breeders, mainly in Europe. We had a couple in the United States. One guy in the West Coast that started breeding. A guy in Chicago, Illinois, started importing captive bred spiderlings from Europe.
So why did you get into importing?
Well, importing for me started mainly for personal reasons. There were a lot of species I wanted, and I used to get a magazine. It was an international magazine, an invertebrate magazine, published somewhere in Europe. And in the back, they had a classified section. I started getting priceless facts to me. Seeing all the different species that were available over there, I was like, oh, well, I want this, here. And I looked into it. I called U.S. Fish and Wildlife and asked them what I needed, and they told me what I needed, and that's how I started importing. But in the beginning, it was just personal. But as I'm going to get into later on, you're going to see that, well, for personal reasons, it's not really financially a good idea.
Yeah, so I wanted to actually ask, what is the import process like? Just like the best little summary you can give people.
Getting the license is not that difficult. It's a yearly license. It's an import-export permit. That's not a big deal. You apply for it online, and they send you your import license. Now, there are also things like, for a one-time personal shipment, you do not need an import-export license, okay? You will just bring it in and declare it and get your animals. But there's a catch. If you're bringing in, say, 5 or 6 of, say, 10 different species, they're going to consider a commercial. And commercial shipments you need to have an import-export license. Again, it's not difficult to get. The big thing is you have to bring it in air cargo. There is no international FedEx, UPS, or USPS. It's illegal to ship spiders and venomous animals anyway. So you cannot bring it in through a private carrier. You have to bring it into air cargo. That means it comes on an airplane from one airport to your airport in a cargo, and you have to have it inspected by U.S. Fish and Wildlife. So the inspection fee is $186 for a shipment. The air cargo, depending on the country you import from, can go from anywhere from $1,000 up to $2,500 for the air cargo. And since COVID, all live shipments now require a broker in the United States. Previous to that, if the shipment was under $2,500 in value, you didn't need a broker. It was called an informal entry. And if it was over $2,500, you needed to get a broker to do a formal entry. A broker is bonded, so they can do that. And you have to pay the broker fee, which can range from $200 to $600 for a shipment. So when you factor in the air cargo, the broker fee, and Fish and Wildlife inspection fee, you're looking, you could be spending $3,000 to $3,500 just for the inspection, the broker, and the air cargo. That's not including the price of the spiders.
So that's pretty expensive, and that kind of like, I think will shed a light. I get a lot of people commenting, oh my God, the prices of tarantulas in the United States is insane. You know, this species costs like 30 euros or something for us, and it's like, you know, $300 for you or something crazy, you know, and it's, they don't seem to understand that a lot of species are all imported still to the United States. So just the fees is already going to hike the prices up for us.
Well, yeah, because that 30 euro spider is not $30. There is a currency exchange. So 30 euros may equal $35 US. Yes, and then you have to tack on the expense that say the $3,000. Let's round it out to $3,000. You have to tack that in. So yes, we're bringing in, oh wow, I want 20 of these spiders, and they're only 20 euros a piece over there. It is not worth it, because by the time you pay everything, now you're paying $100 per spider. And that is the reason that when you're doing imports, you have to bring in large amounts of animals to break up the price.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't recommend it for the somebody that wants a few spiders. The prices may be cheaper over there, but when you really factor everything in, it's going to be cheaper for you to buy from a retailer in the United States.
Yeah, if you're doing it the legal way, but there's people that find ways around it.
And it goes the same way for, say, our native species like Aphanopelma overseas, where they're charging $100, $150 for common Aphanopelma like Annex and Hensai.
Yeah.
Because they're paying the cargo and they're paying the inspection and everything else also from the U.S. side. Originating from the United States, they still have to go air cargo.
Yeah.
It cannot be shipped in the mail. So if you're trying to ship spiders in the mail overseas, it's still illegal. Okay. And the reason for air cargo is so they can inspect it. If it's coming through the mail or coming through FedEx, they don't have access to inspect the shipment, because the shipment's coming in and going to your house. Plus, it's safer for the animals, because shipments from overseas, like when these people, illegally ship boxes, they could take a week to 2 weeks to get to you,
right,
which is going to mean most of the time dead animals.
Yeah.
So it is for the benefit of the animals too. From Germany to the U.S. is 7 hours. The animals are in transit for like 7 or 8 hours, and there's a lot of time that goes into it. Like I said earlier, the getting a license is one thing, but once you're going to the airport and picking this up and waiting for customs release, because you have to have it released by customs also after it's inspected by Fish and Wildlife and you get a clearance, you're looking at a full day of sitting at the airport, 8 hours, 9 hours, sitting there waiting, having the paperwork, and there's a lot of things that can go wrong too. Especially if you're bringing in CITES species, you have to have the original CITES permit accompany the shipment, or else they can confiscate the shipment or have you send it back if the original paperwork is not there. And shipments too, with like in the United States, like when you order them from a dealer and it's like, oh, I'm paying you. Can you ship it out tomorrow? Yeah, it's great. Okay, yeah, we use FedEx. We ship it out right away. But with imports, there's a lot of things you're waiting to see if the airline has an opening that day for your shipment. So it's generally several weeks to a couple months once you start planning an import to the time you're receiving it. It's not as easy as some people think it is. You know, and
right.
I think the general public doesn't realize it because, you know, they're buying from local dealers here. But, you know, when you start going behind the scenes, it's a little bit more complex.
So when you see, so I talked a little bit about this in the video already, but I mentioned something like, okay, we have a lot of, say, Grammostola pulchras here, right? Everybody's got like a bunch of Grammostola pulchras, and then say a vendor suddenly has like 50 Grammostola pulchras, you're probably not going to think much of it. But when you see a vendor suddenly have a species that's not very commonly like around, like say a vendor randomly got 50 Hyllus giganteus, wouldn't that like raise an eyebrow for you as an importer?
It depends on the vendor. And
well, say it was like a smaller vendor that you've never even heard of. I'm not talking about like, say, you know, Tom suddenly had a bunch of Hyllus. I'm saying like, pretend it's somebody you know isn't an importer or something, and they just randomly show up with like some species that you don't think anybody's imported.
Then it becomes suspect. All the importers in the United States, and there's a few of them, we don't always know who's bringing in what. A lot of importers try to keep things a little quiet until they get it in, because things do change in import. Sometimes they order a species and it doesn't come in. So yeah, we don't know what each other's bringing in. So when you see a smaller dealer or a vendor at a show suddenly appear, you might suspect maybe they did it, in a different way, but we don't know if they did get it from a legitimate importer. But yeah, does it raise an eyebrow? Yeah, it does.
Yeah, because for me personally, just like being like, into the jumping spiders and the velvet spiders, long before you and Tom more recently had brought in those Hyllus that I got and bred, before I got those, I had already seen Hyllus around, and you can't assume how they got here because you don't know, but it was very interesting to me because I didn't know anyone at all importing them.
In that case, yeah, you could suspect brown boxing.
Yeah.
And species like that, they're small. When it comes to brown boxing, and for those who don't know what it is, brown boxing is smuggling. It's bringing a shipment of live animals or even dead insects, because dead insects are regulated by U.S. Fish and Wildlife. In terms of like these jumping spiders, these Hyllus, yeah, I mean, people do bring things in.
And it's not just Hyllus. I'm just kind of using them as an example, but it's like, certain velvet spiders and stuff that I know for sure that like if it was coming in legally, it probably would have been through you or Tom because you guys are the main ones.
Yeah, or one of the West Coast importers or a couple on the East Coast. Honestly, when you see something, if it's priced too good to be true, it was probably brown box.
That's exactly what I already said earlier in the video.
Because we look at velvet spider prices, they're $100, $90. Yeah, and overseas they're cheap, but you know what? But like I explained before, once you start adding in all these extra costs and plus a profit, because listen, businesses, you're in business to make a profit, so you have to add a profit to it. You're not going to add $3 profit because, well, if spiders die, you have to compensate for the for DOAs. So so if you're seeing velvet spiders at a show for like $25, there's probably a good chance they were brought in illegally.
Yeah, and like that's something I also mentioned, and there are some people though, like think of Tom Saxton from Fangs TV. He's constantly breeding and selling,
yes,
his
he breeds
slings.
A lot, Tom.
He's selling them a little bit on the lower end because he's breeding them. There's not that many costs in it for him, and everything he's breeding, he's selling himself for the most part, So
yes,
his costs are going to be lower, but that's not always the case. Sometimes you gotta like raise your eyebrow and maybe ask some questions.
But you can look at like Tom's site and Tom's post, and Tom does legally import. He is an importer also, and he does breed a lot. So right there, you can see that he's doing things legitimately.
Yeah.
Okay. He's got a good name out there, and he, like you said, he does breed a lot. But it's like when you go to these shows and you see somebody with like 10 spiders on their table, then it becomes a little bit more suspect.
I think for a lot of people, like getting into the hobby through jumping spiders and velvet spiders, they're not familiar with what brown boxing is, so they don't even really know that it's wrong or any of that. So that's kind of why I wanted to make this video, was just kind of make people aware of what it is.
That's a great idea. I have seen on Facebook, instances where somebody was like, hey, I just got these jumping spiders from Poland, and they're doing an unboxing video. And I will write to them or I'll PM them, hey, you know what? It's illegal, what you did and this. And a lot of times the person will be like, I really didn't know that.
Yeah.
And it does happen. There are people that don't realize it, but then sometimes you get people that, they do it and they know they're doing wrong and they just want to make a buck. Eventually they get caught. It's just a matter of time. What happens when they get caught? Well, the box gets confiscated. They, a lot of times, will have to pay a fine. And depending on the species, if they're CITES or ESA species, yeah, there could be a possible imprisonment time too. And once somebody's told that it's illegal, if they keep doing it, well, then it's on them.
I mean, we've seen people actually get repercussions. It's not like they don't take action against this when they see it. You know what I mean?
Oh, they do. And there's like, a friend of mine a few years ago got caught, and I had warned him over and over and over again, and, he eventually got caught.
Yeah.
And it became a big thing. It was all over the news. They made a documentary about it.
Yeah, I was going to say, is it that guy, and I'm friends with him on Facebook. I saw that. And what kind of attention does that attract to the hobby when somebody does get caught?
Well, from outsiders, like a lot of the groups out there and animal activists, it's a negative view on the hobby. It becomes, hey, it's a black market.
And it kind of almost puts us at risk and jeopardy here because, we're already being watched. And if they see people out there just not caring and not following the laws, in my opinion, I feel they're going to make them stricter.
They will make them stricter, and they're already doing that in a lot of the cases. And I was going to say, you know what? It's up to us to keep, trying to do things right. But you're always going to have people trying to skirt the law. Eventually, it's going to just come back and hit us in the face.
That's something I noticed too. It's like when these people are out breaking the rules and then they tighten up the rules and the laws for us, then the people who are doing things the right way are the ones that are really honestly paying the price of the mistakes of these other people. Right. And also, these other people are selling these animals for a lot cheaper because their costs are lower because they're getting them in illegally. So they're almost like undercutting the people who are actually out there doing the right thing. So it really does add up and hurt the hobby way more than I think a lot of them even realize.
They don't realize it or they don't care about it. That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's usually, like you said, the people that are trying to do the right thing are the ones that are under the radar. We're the ones filling out the paperwork.
With your names and everything, yeah.
There are cases out there, which I'm not going to mention any specific, but of somebody doing the right thing and filling out the right paperwork and getting in trouble for it.
Yeah.
And that's the way it's going. I mean, hopefully your video reaches some people and they wonder, well, oh, wow, I can't do this anymore. And it may stop them.
I really hope so. And what I really hope is that just people who aren't aware of what it is and the ramifications of it, they see this and then they're like, oh no, like now I know this. Because I have a subscriber chat and I was even talking to them about this yesterday. Some of them were like, what is brown boxing? They had never even heard of it. So it's so important, I feel like, to talk to you, somebody who is reputable and has been doing this for so long, and just like put that out there so they can take that information and do with it what they want. They can either listen or ignore it, but at least they know what they're doing and what the repercussions are.
Right, exactly. Like I said, if they just want some personal spiders, buy from a reputable dealer in the United States, and you don't have to worry about it. Yeah, you're going to pay a couple dollars more, but in the long, when you really think about it, they're not paying more because if they want to do it legitimately, they have to order a lot of animals. If they're going to do it illegally, well, then they run the risk of getting caught, having the animals confiscated, and getting fined. Yeah. Okay. And plus, they're out the money on the animals too. More.
So, are you able to bring in any species endemic to Brazil anymore, or is that just done?
No, it's done. No, you cannot bring in any endemic Brazilian species, and that's it. And that's Brazil's law. Brazil doesn't allow export, and that's it.
But hey, that's so weird because randomly we have newer Brazilian species coming in since they stopped import. Isn't that kind of weird? Isn't that kind of strange?
Yeah. I guess so. It's a thing today with spiders that everybody has to have the newest and the rarest species.
Yeah.
Do I think that a lot of countries should open up for export? Yes, I do.
Yeah, like Mexico's a good example of that.
Mexico's great. They opened up. They have breeding facilities there, and they're doing the right thing. It provides money for the people there, more jobs, and it does protect, the wildlife from getting smuggled out. Other countries should follow in suit, but they're not. There are countries with reptiles that are starting now, like Colombia does legal exports of dart frogs. It just takes time, it takes money, and it takes, a know-how of how to approach the government of that particular country to show how it would benefit them. They could blame it all on the pet trade, how numbers are getting lower in the wild, but, you also have deforestation and everything else.
Absolutely.
That destroy tons of habitats for these animals. So
before we go, I actually wanted to ask you one more thing. What are a couple species that you were the first to import into the country?
Oh, jeez.
You can think of.
Poecilotheria metallica, Poecilotheria miranda, Amphibopus ignathus. Wow, there were a few back then. I'm thinking of Homothymus shiatodi, which I think it used to be Syrupagopus thorelli, and the name's changed a few times.
And what are a few that you bred in the U.S. for the first time?
Are we talking like tarantulas or true spiders?
Either, whichever. I want you to flex a little bit to these people. Come on, show them who you are.
Yeah, Heteropoda lanula. I bred back in 2009. This Heteropoda species, Thailand cave, that's over here now. Latrodectus manavoti, Latrodectus curacaviensis. There's a few of them out there.
Yeah.
I don't keep track because Tom doesn't give me any trophies anyway.
Yeah, well, me neither.
There's no proof that I bred them because there's no photographs or anything. So.
Well, I don't think you're lying, so I don't think they'll think that either.
Not lie about. I'm not going to get rich off of that anyway.
Yeah.
First time breeder,
Well, I appreciate you talking to us, I'm sure that a lot of people will be bored because they don't want to sit there and listen to us talk, but there will also be a lot of people very interested in what you had to say, and maybe they'll even want you to come back sometime to talk more because you've been around. That. So yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and you have a lot of respect in the hobby, so the fact that you'd come on my channel and talk to my viewers is awesome. Thank you.
Well, you're like the biggest YouTuber out there.
Oh, well, I wouldn't say that, but maybe in the United States, all right?
Yeah, no, it's been enjoyable. Thanks. I appreciate you having me.
All right, everybody. So that's Frank Somma joining us from New York traffic. I can't believe we made it the whole time without one F-bomb while you were driving. That's great.
Well, I just parked about 10 minutes ago.
Can you yell no. You can't park there, or where'd you learn to drive or something for them?
No, I'm not doing that. Come on.
All right, Frank. Well, thank you so much, and I will talk to you soon, okay?
Sounds good, Kat. Take care, right?
You too, bye.
All right.
Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. I know it's a little different, but I just wanted to bring him on and talk a little bit more about, everything. And we kind of got off topic a couple times, but he's interesting to talk to. So if you guys enjoyed that, let me know. And yeah, like this video if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're not, and you want to be. Don't forget I have an Instagram to use probably way too much. It's @Tarantula.Kat. You can go follow me there. I also have a Fourth Wall Patreon merch, a bunch of links down below, and I will see you guys soon.